You would tape the contact paper, you would roll it out and tape it to the tape it to the table. You would rip up pieces of paper, and then they would take the paper and stick it to the contact paper. Basically, it's just going to be a collage of ripped up paper, and then you take it, and you take a piece of paper and you trace a dinosaur on it. You have the teacher cut out the dinosaur shape, so it's just like a piece of paper and the outline of the dinosaur, and then you take their contact paper and stick it to the dinosaur. So then the collage that they made is in a shape of a dinosaur. And it gives the glass stain look. Next I have dinosaur footprints, and this is where you want to take figurines. These ones are a little bit bigger. So take dinosaur figurines. These ones are all plastic. And you want to give them a sensory bin that's full of Play-Doh. And basically what you want to do is take a dinosaur like so and push it into the Play-Doh. So the dinosaur's footprints make a mold of footprints in the Play-Doh. When they take them out, it'll be Play-Doh with the dinosaur footprints in it. So they're using not only the plastic dinosaur toys, but they're also using the sensory Play-Doh in it. Next, we have dinosaur sponge painting, and basically what this is taking sponges. You can cut them out into footprints. You can attempt to cut dinosaur shapes into the sponge. You give them printer paper, you give them paint, and you have them press the sponge into the paint and then press it onto the paper, which gives them a stamp-like activity, but you're using sponge for texture, you're using the paint. So it's a lot of sensory, again, even for this age. Again, sensory is always huge. But they're using the sponge, which is definitely a different texture. Next is paper plate stegosauruses, and this one is one that I do all the time, but basically you take a paper plate, you cut it in half, and that is the body of the dinosaur. You can give this to them, you can give them, like green crayons, brown markers, brown markers, or crayons. You can have them color the plate to represent the color of their dinosaur. They color the plate, and then the teacher gives them material that's already cut out. Like you can cut out triangles that can go on the top of the stegosaurus's back, which represent the spikes. You give them glue sticks, cut them out a head, cut them out a tail, cut them out the spikes, they glue it all together, and it makes a cute toddler craft of a stegosaurus. Next is dinosaur footprint painting, and this one's kind of like the Play-Doh one, except they're painting with the dinosaur footprints and not pressing them into a Play-Doh mold. So basically you give them paper, you give them a plate with paint on it, and you have them dip the dinosaur into their paint and press it onto the paper, and this will leave dinosaur tracks when they do it all over the paper. Next is science and nature, and this one's called dinosaur sandbox dig. Only if your center or your school has a sandbox available. If not, you can make this a sensory bucket activity if you have sand at hand, but you also might want to find smaller dinosaurs than these friends. But basically, if you can, or if you have a teacher aide or somebody that can run outside real quick before you go outside, is you take the dinosaurs and you basically bury them in the sand. And then you want to give your students sand buckets, sand shovels, and basically they go in the sandbox and they dig up the dinosaurs. Next is dinosaur fizzy eggs, something the teacher has to put together the day before. You want to do it, but basically there's an ingredient list where you put a bunch of things together, and you mold it into, or roll it into a ball so it looks like a dinosaur egg. I've seen ones where you put the tiny dinosaur figurines inside the mold, mush it all together, and when it sits overnight, the mold gets hard. A science experiment, because if you get eyedroppers and you fill them up with water, when they drop the water on the egg, the chemicals in it have the egg almost melt and makes a fizzy noise, so they can hear it fizz, and then when the egg melts, the dinosaur appears. So it's like the dinosaur hatches out of the egg. So that's really fun. It's a big science experiment. Next I have icy dinosaur eggs. And again, this one's like a fossil activity. However, you can't do it with these ones. You have to find the smaller, like Dollar Tree, dollar store plastic dinosaurs. And what you want to do is, if you get the plastic Easter eggs almost, and you fill them with water, you close it and let them freeze overnight. Or before they freeze, you want to stick the dinosaur in it, close it, let it freeze overnight. Or honestly, if you just put water in a plastic cup and then put the dinosaur in it, let it freeze overnight, then you can put this in a sensory bucket. You can give them the ice droppers again, you can give them cups, but basically their activity is going to try to get the dinosaur out of the frozen egg. And they're using their fine motor with the eyedroppers if you give them those. Next I have salt dough dinosaur fossils as an activity. And basically, again, the day before, you want to get all the ingredients to put together. But in the end, when you put all the material together, it makes like a Play-Doh. And then you can take like these bigger dinosaurs again, when they flatten out the dough in their sensory buckets, they can have them take a dinosaur and again stamp their footprints into it. And then you tell them that it has to sit overnight. And because it's salt dough, the dough will harden. And then the next day, it's an actual like fossil because the dough is hard. They can take it home. They can tell their families that they made fossils. And then next, I just have a dinosaur bath sensory bucket thing, which is kind of similar to the infant one that I talked about in the beginning. Basically, just fill up another sensory bucket or tub of warm water, put these dinosaurs in it, give them eyedroppers, give them paintbrushes, put soap in it, and they like to pretend that they're giving the dinosaurs a bath. I have the character education books. The first one is 5 Little Dinosaurs. It's by Michelle Courtney. Basically, it goes through counting, it goes through numbers 1 through 5, but the book itself is about making friends. And then moving on to the Jake Yolen books, that goes along with How Did Dinosaurs Say Goodnight. He actually has books that are character education books. This one is called How Did Dinosaurs Say I'm Mad. So this one is a big how to use your words, expressing himself. For example, the book says, how does a dinosaur act when he's mad? Does he roar, slam the door, yell at mom or dad? It goes through all the things that usually toddlers might do when they're angry. But at the end it says, no, a dinosaur doesn't. He counts up to 10, then after timeout breathes calmly, and then he cleans up his mess and he picks up the mug. He says, I'm sorry, and gives mom and dad a big hug. Next one is How Did Dinosaurs Stay Friends? This one goes along with the theme of making friends, making sure that you're saying kind words. Even if you get mad at someone, or you get upset with somebody, there's things that you can do to fix the issue. And then the third and final physical book that I have is How Did Dinosaurs Stay Safe? So this is a book teaching them how to be safe, goes over things that they should be doing to stay safe. So that's another character education book. And then the last one I have to make 5 for Friday is a book by Jake Yolen, again, dinosaur themed, but it's called How Did Dinosaurs Play With Their Friends? For the gross motor activities for our last section of the toddler lesson plan, I have a dinosaur stomp. And for this in my lesson plan, I wrote to play We Are the Dinosaurs by Lori Berkner. And basically, they're going to stomp around the room and act like they're dinosaurs in the room while the song is playing. They could sing and dance to the song, but it's gross motor because they're using their legs to stomp around the classroom. Next is kind of going around the same, but you can take this outside. Or a game or activity that they can do out there is pretend to be a dinosaur so they can continue to stomp around the playground. They can roar, they can flap their wings like a pterodactyl, things like that. But that again is using their whole bodies. It's getting them outdoors. Wednesday, I have a dinosaur gross motor game, and this one is kind of like the dice that I talked about, but it has to do with dinosaurs. And on each side, you write things like stomp like a dinosaur, flap your wings like a pterodactyl, roar like a stegosaurus, things like that. And they basically have to act out whatever action that they get of the dinosaur. It makes them act like dinosaurs. Gross motor because they're using their whole bodies. And dinosaur jump, the teacher can cut out footprints out of paper, tape them to the floor in the classroom, and the students can go around and put their feet in the footprints, and they can jump from each one and pretend to be a dinosaur that's jumping. And lastly is an activity that I found on Pinterest. I linked the Pinterest link in my document, but it's basically dinosaur yoga. Basically, it's a list of things for yoga poses. Basically, one of them's like just stands like a stegosaurus, dip down like a diplodocus, which is basically downward dog, but gives them different poses to act out, and it gives them yoga. You can do it as a calm down activity, an activity to do before you transition, but is a yoga activity which has them pose like dinosaurs. So that is my last gross motor activity. That is all 3 of my lesson plans. It was nice to be able to almost introduce myself as a person and as a teacher. I hope you enjoyed meeting my cat. His name is Milo. I tried to ignore him the best I could. But yes, that is the end of my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the semester. Thank you, Professor Germanario. I hope you have a great long weekend.